Welcome to Health Tech Heroes, where we talk to innovators who are rewriting the DNA of healthcare. Today, we are thrilled to welcome Jared Stanger, CEO and founder of the Magnified Group and Magnified Learning. With nearly 2 decades of experience in healthcare transformation and over $1 billion in value transformation savings across his portfolio, Jared is revolutionizing how healthcare organizations approach process improvement through innovative, cohesive value transformation methodology. Welcome to Health Tech Heroes, Jared.
Thanks, Vasa. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to be able to speak to your community of Health Tech Heroes, and it's a pleasure to be featured.
I'm totally thrilled and stoked about having you here, Jared. This is about Health Tech Heroes, and considering the word hero, I think it will be very appropriate to start with the origin story. How did you come up with the idea, and what made you decide that, hey, this is the thing that we need to do? What was that pivotal moment in your life that you said cohesive value transformation methodology was so important?
Yeah, thank you. Our origin story started with me in my early career of healthcare. So I really was a part of this movement of what's called Lean Six Sigma in industries. Lean comes from Toyota. They popularized it, and Toyota's, a very, very high performing top car manufacturer. So it caught a lot of industry's attention, and maybe we should adopt some of those methodologies. At the same time, in the 80s, Motorola coined the term Six Sigma, and they really had amazing outcomes in whatever they were producing. And so where Lean is focused on the inputs to get to that desired output and doing it in an efficient way, an effective way, Six Sigma was focused on minimal issues and errors. And when I started in healthcare, I noticed a lot of errors, and I noticed things were really expensive. And in 2010, there was a really big push for Lean Six Sigma in healthcare. And I think there was this understanding of if they can do it, we can do it. And I saw it being rejected over and over and over again. And some of it was accepted, but smaller versions or certain parts of the healthcare organization would embrace it. And it just really left me dissatisfied. How could other companies achieve a Six Sigma level performance or be lean and effective, and we cannot? So I was hired in various roles to be a problem solver. And I was just the guy that you would bring in to say, we don't know why, we don't know how, but we trust you and we want you to try to help us figure this thing out. So I studied how to do this in healthcare for about a decade. And I started experimenting with what is the most effective way to problem solve in an industry as complicated as healthcare. And that's where I started to see some success. And then I had people come back to me saying, can you teach me how to do this? And I really didn't have a place to send people. And after about 3 years of just these healthcare professionals saying, teach me, teach me, teach me, I decided to start Magnified Learning. And now we've grown into the Magnified Group because our students have come back either asking for consulting services or they want to partner with us in a ventures manner of, I've got an idea that healthcare needs and I trust you to help me implement it. And there's a lot on the forefront of technology in how we can solve problems, identify problems, and bring those solutions in the tech world. And so naturally, we've grown into this almost accidental company because it's what the industry needs. So our origin definitely starts with enhancing the problem-solving journey and moving in a direction that is being able to empower the individual to enhance their thinking, their philosophies, their values, and then persuading others to join the cause and strengthen the community around them so that they can accomplish their goal. And we really have a great product. People have spoken very highly of that education, and we're really proud of that. Really cool stuff. We could talk for hours.
I can see that and I can listen to that for hours, to be honest. Let me double click on this. So there are a lot of people who were coming to you and saying like, hey, teach us, but taking action needs an emotional turnaround. Do you have an incident or particular moment that made you decide that, hey, this is what I'm going to dedicate my life for?
I think when I first started in healthcare, I started as an EMT, so I wanted to take care of patients directly. And then I realized I was limited in how many patients I could help. if I was just going to be an EMT or just going to be a doctor. I wanted to have an enterprise impact. And so I got into administration, but I had no idea I was stepping into an industry that had so many challenges, so many complexities working against them. And now we look at today, and culture is a huge topic. We're seeing more and more unionization of staff and workflows. We're seeing more debates on how best to take care of the patient. We're seeing more hospitals going bankrupt from not being able to afford. Also, the debates of cutting reimbursements. And then you hear all of this waste. And I got thrown into the middle of that young in my career and realized I can't just go in and lead an organization and not know how to problem solve. And then I started to love fixing these problems. I fell in love with the complexity of it. I didn't know I had that love and that passion until I got into the situation that I got into. And then I fell in love with helping people who really were stuck. And now I have a following of individuals that are constantly just collaborating with me on, I'm in this situation. Do you have any thoughts? I'm dealing with these people, this personality. I'm struggling to convey this message. I'm really having a hard time getting that final product to connect with the customer or patient or whatever it might be. And I'm the kind of guy that just kind of sits back with a team of people, and we're writing stuff all over the walls. We're experimenting left and right. And then we come with the optimal solution that has been proven and tested. I just realized probably in my mid 30s, I'm doing stuff that people either don't want to do, they don't like to do, or they just can't do. And it was actually my wife who approached me and said, I think you need to take this a little bit more seriously. At the time, I didn't want to get into consulting. I was an internal consultant. There was this bad taste in my mouth about I'm never going to see my family. I'm going to be traveling all the time. And I wanted to be there for my kids and my wife. And she really pushed me and said, I think you need to do this. I think this is something that you can help a lot of people with, and it aligns with you. So I really do have to give kudos to my wife and my friends and my coworkers and colleagues for pushing me to be in this role and seeing the potential I could, of who I could become. I don't think I could do it without them. So
That was an amazing story. Starting from EMT, you were on the field, actually looking at patients and realizing how much they need this type of help. So let me get this right. You did not say that, oh, I see a problem from a higher level, but you actually experienced it. That's a powerful, powerful story. I got goosebumps just listening to that story, how it originated there. And there is always a woman behind success. So I'm really happy you brought that out. And I'm glad that you have such great friends. You achieved over 1 billion in value transformation savings. Can you share a specific case study that best demonstrates the power of your methodology?
Oh, yeah. I had shared earlier, I've got 10 years of experimenting how to do this right. So I did a very robust 10-year study of looking at the traditional way of problem solving using this Lean Six Sigma approach. And it's using the DMAIC framework. And the philosophy is that we hire a consultant or we put our faith in a leader and take a top-down approach of this leader is going to persuade everybody to change. And they're going to have the answers and they just need to tell us what to do. Or maybe there's an art to it of this leader's going to persuade people to get to the right answer. Now, the problem with that, and what I found, is you don't unlock the true potential of who you're working with. They have their framework and they have their values, and they're limited in understanding what the true problem is. And if you come in from that top-down approach, you really are persuading them to listen to you and trust you as you go through the journey, but you're not really teaching them how to solve problems, how to recognize problems. And so that was one of the barriers I saw with that DMAIC approach. I needed a team, I needed people, I needed a culture of individuals who understood what it is we're trying to accomplish and how to get that job done. The other thing I noticed was that what we were teaching from a Lean Six Sigma perspective or a problem-solving perspective was not applicable to healthcare, because in healthcare, we are not a group of machines taking care of a patient or people. And I really started to experiment with the importance of emotional intelligence. How do I align my values with the values of everyone around me? And how do I persuade everyone around me to lift or rise above the way we always do things? And how can I persuade them to get to the outcome that I know we need to go to? And now I can develop a solution with all of those followers, with all of these like-minded individuals. And the solutions that we develop are such a higher quality because you have not just one perspective from Jared, but you've got Jared Plus bringing multiple frameworks of understanding the customer, understanding the business, understanding the culture, and understanding the individual values and the people the business is hiring that actually produce the sellable good or solution. And so that is the CVT approach that we started experimenting with. And the results were astronomically different. So what we did is we grouped things into 3 buckets. We had low-hanging fruit projects that were just, we're going to do it. It's pretty simple. We don't need to change culture. We just need to go and get it done, right? And then we had the second group, which was intermediate complexity projects. And in these projects, we are going to impact culture. We need the culture to change so that the solution can not only be implemented, but be sustainable. And then there's innovation, which is we've never done this before. We don't have a process for it. We don't even have a cost center for it. And we're creating something that doesn't exist. And that follows a very different thought process, and it requires a whole lot of energy that your staff may or may not have, your client may or may not have. And so when I started grouping projects and following the outcomes of the 2 different models, DMAIC versus this CVT approach, I noticed not only was there 20 times more value in the savings outcomes from CVT to the traditional way, but there was a shift in the traditional way of problem solving. The shift came from what type of projects are we going to do? What kind of problems are we going to solve? And majority of them were low-hanging fruit opportunity. And that kind of makes sense, right? Because we're sending somebody in, top-down approach, and they're going to persuade people to change. Well, in that model, and this is really sad, at first I thought I was a terrible consultant because in that traditional model, only about 30% of my recommendations would actually get implemented. And that was really heartbreaking for me because I thought we had some really cool stuff. But what I realized is I wasn't meeting people in their values, or I was presenting things that they saw as a threat. In the CVT approach, we didn't have that problem. There was actually quite a shift from the low-hanging fruit projects to the intermediate complexity and innovation. People were not only willing to change, they wanted to change. They were starving for it. And it wasn't just somebody up there motivating them. This was finally the individual feeling like they had a community of people they could trust to share their ideas. They all figured out the common language to use, the right emotional intelligence needed to share their ideas. And then they mastered the art of, I may be wrong, but I'm willing to change as I get more information from others around me, and then my solution can be modified. And so, again, we saw a huge impact in the bottom line savings because the quality of the technical solution was significantly better. It had more savings and better outcomes and aligned closer to the values of the customer. So more people wanted it, right? And we also found the quality of the solution shifted from don't mess with the culture to let's mess with the culture. Let's have fun messing with the culture. And let's do things we've never done before. Let's have fun doing that too. And that's what we saw with CVT. It was really, really cool. The $1 billion in savings, it comes from people. It's not Jared Stanger. It's Jared Stanger's ability to work with others. And then together, we find ways to get the job done.
That was a masterclass. I think that should be an episode by itself. Managerial skill set and the leadership skill set. I think we need both, but I think the leadership has to start taking a bigger and bigger role as we let our employees work and solve it for us. As you said, it is the people, Jared Stanger, because Jared Stanger actually let people solve the problems that was beyond any individual's boundary.
Yeah, I would say CVT addresses 2 gaps. It addresses transformational gaps, which is how are we going to do things differently and transform, and it addresses value gaps. And with value gaps, there's 2 definitions there. Value is something of worth. I can put a value on a car and say it's worth this much money, but values are also one's beliefs. And if I come with the transformational solution that messes with the individual's values from both contexts, from what they see as of worth in their job, how much they're worth to the organization, how much they should be paid, right? But also, if I start messing with their beliefs, why they became a nurse, why they became an engineer, why they became a leader, it's going to blow up. And the response is very emotional at that point. And that's when we get into things just aren't sustainable or they aren't accepted. With CVT, it's an alignment of all of that. We align the customer with the business and the culture and the individuals that are driving that business value. And when you have solutions that align with all four of those areas, you have something really special. It's a really, really special product that's going to be used very heavily.
I am beginning to appreciate CVT a lot more. And I knew it was very successful methodology, but this was an amazing summary connecting those dots. So advice for a leader who's getting into leadership?
You know, there's two types of leaders. There's the leader where you're an influencer, and then there's a leader where you're a decision maker. Anyone can be a leader from an influential perspective. What I call those individuals and their personalities is they're a role model. They're people that you want to be around because they treat you with respect. They understand where you're coming from. They take the time to listen, but they're also there to be your coach. And the older we get, the more we become a role model. We learn how to do it. But there's very few of us who are actually decision makers. And that type of leadership is very different. Not only do you need to be a role model, but you need to be confident enough to make the decision and own it. And my advice in either one of those leadership roles is to master the art of emotional intelligence. And what that means is you've mastered forgiveness. And that's something we don't really talk about. We might talk about it from a religious perspective, but in the business world, we're constantly forgiving. We're constantly letting things go. We're constantly building people. And if we fail to forgive an individual of a mistake that they've made, maybe it's a direct report, maybe it's a peer, maybe it's a boss, then we don't let it go. Those feelings stay in us and we start to have that wedge in our heart and we start to feel resentment. We start to feel anger and guile and all those nasty things that prevent us from being the best version that we can be and really working well with others. One of the most important skills, I think, is that we've got to be able to forgive better so that we can develop people and help them grow. Now, what I've learned as a leader is when you take the time to forgive people, they become super fans. When they know that they're in a mistake and they got caught or it was found out, they're embarrassed. They might be defensive. They might be retreating. They might want to flee. And for the ones who are fighting you, calm them down. Let them know it's okay. There's no threat. We're going to get through it together. It'll be fine. For the ones who are retreating, go and grab them. Pull them in tight. Give them encouragement and say, everyone makes mistakes. We're okay. For the ones who are freezing, again, confidence. But the most dangerous situation you'll find yourself in is when someone's fawning. And when they fawn, they just decide to do whatever you want them to do. They stop thinking because the only thing in their mind that is going to get them out of this embarrassing situation is to just agree to everything that you're saying instead of giving you that feedback. And then they leave the discussion and they come back thinking what you want to hear and continuing to fawn instead of being a true support and saying, this is right, this is wrong, this is how we're going to work together. And so as a leader, you've got to balance all of them. The leaders I've met, and there's very few of them, but there are some out there that struggle to forgive people. They don't go very far very fast. Okay, so don't be a jerk. That's the bottom line.
This part might be a highlight of the podcast. Don't be a jerk. Switching it a little bit into transformation part of it, is there any specific situation that you can share to shed more light on transformation has a potential to collide with values and there was a pushback, and what did you do there?
Yeah, of course. So sometimes I get brought in when the project's already started, right? And they're behind schedule, they're behind budget, they're over budget, or things are just starting to get a little toxic and they need some help. There was one situation I remember very well. I was in Florida and I was working with two different departments. And one department was saying, we're not doing this anymore. What you're asking us to do to serve you is actually causing more harm and it's increasing our expenses. We can't do it anymore. The other department said, no, you have to do it because it's not in our values. We didn't go to school to do that. We definitely don't want to do it. It's beneath us, right? They're using words like that, like you're you and we are us. We're not willing to to blend, and you have to do it. You have to serve us because we serve the customer, and so you have to support us. And I got in the situation where they just were really button heads. They all agreed with the value that we need to take care of the customer. They disagreed with how to do that. And so when I sat down and I started recognizing what they were disagreeing about, I started to understand the culture. And what was happening is we were using the wrong leadership tools. We were taking an authoritarian approach of, you will do this, I will not do that, instead of figuring out solutions together, which is what culturally they've always done. So when I sat down with them and I started to use democracy, I started to use voting, I started to ask these critical questions, which is something that we do in the CVT approach in assessing the culture. I aligned a different leadership philosophy to what the culture needs to thrive in. And just taking that simple approach got everybody to calm down and start to realize, okay, we've got a problem here. Because you're right, what we're asking you to do is increasing expenses and it's putting a burden on you, and you guys are going to quit. It's messing with your values. And so that solution that we implemented 4 months ago, it's not sustainable. So what do we do? And that's where we started to have some really cool conversation. Some of it was they started throwing stuff out. Some of it wasn't very sustainable. It wasn't good, but at least we started talking. And then from my perspective, I got to be able to come in and give my 2 cents. And what it came down to was a hybrid approach. What if Department A did this stuff, which made sense for them and still aligned with their values, and Department B took on the other stuff that didn't necessarily go outside of their wheelhouse of what they could do, but they were willing to do it because it was the right thing for the patient and they didn't have to give up control. And so we all agreed we're going to do it. And 2 years later, I go back to the hospital and they're still doing it. And they're happy. They're not happy about all the other stuff, but they're happy about that. And I remember talking to one of the nurses and she came up and she's like, can you help us with all this other stuff? Because what you did there was so magical. And we have such a better relationship now. And we just feel like we can talk to each other with respect, that we didn't know how to do that before. But I've got problems with this. I've got problems with the ICU. I've got problems with the ED and all this other stuff. And we just need your help, right? And it breaks my heart that we don't have the formal education to learn how to do this before we enter the job. And that is heartbreaking. But it was so cool to see CVT come together that way. And I think a lot of you listening right now can probably think back on projects that have failed, and you start to realize, oh yeah, they failed because of people. Someone didn't like this, someone didn't want that, it jeopardized, we didn't align with the customer, right? So you're probably wondering right now, how do I better align to these things? How do I recognize the culture? How do I recognize the right tools I need to use to get people to play ball better? And if there's one thing I've learned, it's there's no silver bullet. You've got to have a toolkit of things, resources, of approaches, of knowledge, so that when you walk into a situation, you can adapt to what they need you to be instead of what you want to be. So that's a lot of what we do at Magnified.
My next question would have been should this be in part of the curriculum for people who are in healthcare industry? Because people learn really well how to treat patients. I think they may not they learn it during practice, but not necessarily a formal education on how to treat each other. This leads to the future state of magnified learning and CVT. There is a huge influx of new technology. How are you adapting? What do you think is the future for CVT and magnified learning very specifically?
That's a great question. Where are we investing right now? AI and machine learning is huge. Why? Because there's so much of what we do that can be predicted. But not only can it be predicted, it can help us before the problem occurs. We've always talked about in medicine how we're too reactive. We need to be proactive, right? And so there's a lot of efforts out there of how can I be more proactive before problems arise? So one of the things that we're really investing in is, well, how can AI and the use of these algorithms help us to see the future based on what's coming in the door right now? And in problem solving, a lot of our time and attention is spent on understanding where the problem has occurred. If we can speed that up, we can solve problems so much faster. And then it doesn't become this tedious effort of figuring out where is the problem and is that the real problem? We have the algorithms and the Poisson distribution modeling, right, doing it for us. It's telling us, look here, look here, look here. And now you as a human being can go do your thing with the emotional intelligence side. It would be wonderful to walk into a room and have a dashboard that pointed you in these directions or informed not only you, but everyone on your team, there's a problem here and you need to meet about it sooner than later. And then we all get together understanding that's the problem. And we jump right into the analyze phase. We jump into the solution part. And now we're starting to proactively engage with the team, with the process to fix it. And there's so many times we can do that. I mean, I just really am excited to see the evolution of the machine learning and AI to help us solve problems faster. I'm also very excited investing in how can we educate? How can we simplify learning? How can we better connect to the learning style? And how can we use AI to help the learner be in control of their learning experience instead of being told? In today's classroom, we tell. We sit there, there's a lecturer up there, they give a lecture, here's the principles, here's the learning objectives, now go and do it because I say so. What if we put in the hands of the learner what they want to do, what they're trying to solve, and we teach them how to use AI to do that, right? So in order for AI to work in that manner, we've got a lot of data that we need to get. We've got to find the right source to be able to use that, but then we can start to build the right software that aligns with the learner's needs. And now you're starting to get into customer values. What matters to them? If we understand how we as workers think and act and behave, then we can start to develop solutions that actually align with what they're trying to do and accomplish. And that's something that we can really leverage AI to do. So we're investing a lot in that. We're investing a lot in the learning platform because, like you said, there's not a lot in education right now that's skills-based learning. And we need these skills. Every company is looking at, before they hire any leader, tell me about how you solve problems. And there's no formal platform to land on and how to do it. And I also hear the other, oh yeah, I'm a leader and I'm Lean Six Sigma certified, but I've never used it. That's because you learned the wrong stuff. You are certified in Lean Six Sigma to do frontline work. You're a leader. You need executive leader, executive Lean Six Sigma, not frontline Lean Six Sigma, right? So there's a lot to think about the wholesale of how we educate and address those gaps. There's a lot to think about in how we can optimize the individual and give them control to do the right thing. And that's where we're really focusing hard on. Is how can we be a better support for you and unlock the potential of you?
That was phenomenal, Jared. I think there are two things that sometimes it changes your thought process. And I think this did actually, and it does not happen often, but it happened two times in just this part. And I think the whole podcast was really informative, but these two things I think were very critical in my mindset change. Was the first part is the AI is not just going to make it faster, but also you use the word instead of reactive, we can actually become proactive and cross the line. So yes, we will get faster. Faster is we can still be reactive, but faster, but we can actually get proactive. That will be like super fast. And I think that idea of technology making your decisions proactive than making just reactive, just faster reaction is pretty phenomenal mindset change. And the second thing what I changed, and I love learning. My family they're all learners. I keep learning, but I think you turn the socks inside out that, hey, this is the framework. These are the 10 things, 10 principles that will help you in your leadership. Use what is applicable to you. Now you're turning that socks around and saying, this is the problems you're facing. So based on these problems, these are the points that are useful to you. And then it is like immediately effective and useful for me. If I have a tool, something that says, this is your problem, these are your values, and these are the 3 bullet points out of 100 bullet points that are going to help you. That'll be like golden right away for me. I think just turning that socks around that way was pretty phenomenal. It was a mindset change that you don't spend like 4 years of education mastering leadership, but there's 3 months of things that are like actually useful for you, this problem, and you lost that memory. So that was a good thing. I think I will mentally chew on it for a little bit after the podcast. Thank you very much for that. Being considerate of the time, I think we covered quite a bit, way beyond what we had planned. Talking about the future, I know it is really hard to predict even the next year, but where do you think the learning industry is going to be in next 5 years? It's a huge challenge there.
Yeah, what we're investing in and what we're seeing is that one person goes through the traditional school and, 20, 30 years ago, they would stay in that profession the rest of their life, right? It's a traditional trade school approach. I went to be a doctor, I'm going to be a doctor until I die, right? Doesn't work that today. With the evolution of so much happening, our doctors are becoming IT specialists. Our doctors are becoming consultants. Our doctors are becoming administrators. They never went to school to do any of that, but they have some passion for it, right? What we're seeing in education is there's a huge gap of having a true advocate by your side as you continue to develop yourself. Where you start is not where you're going to end. And for my kids, that's the one thing I'm teaching them all the time. When I started in this field, I thought I was going to end up in lane A. I'm all the way over here in G. I thought I was going to run a hospital and that's what I wanted to do. Now I'm helping hospitals before they go bankrupt. And it's so much more rewarding for me. But I can't help but think, all the things that I've done wrong, all the failures I've had doing it alone, it's been really hard for me. I've had no one, no support. There's no one out there that said, here's how you do it. There's no safe environment for me. The higher up the ladder you grow, the lonelier it gets. There's no one to talk to. We need a place where we can go and learn in a safe environment, and I can continue to develop who I want to be without a boss or a company or a spouse getting nervous. Like, oh, what's going on here? And I need to stop them before they go off the deep end or whatever, right? And maybe those are exaggerated examples, but I see too often our younger generation, especially these younger generations today, they get started in their field and they quit. They quit because they don't have the support they need. I see more and more teachers quitting. Not because they don't like teaching, they love teaching. They just don't know how to solve problems. They don't know what the next step is. They don't know how to grow. It's the same thing in healthcare. It's the same thing in engineering, manufacturing. Everyone has the same problem. They want more. We're starving for more as people. We don't want to do the same thing over and over and over again. We want what we want, and that's to grow in the way that we want to grow. We really don't have, again, a good advocate that helps us do that. And so Magnified is hoping to address that growth challenge with our membership portal and how we can be a non-biased third-party support for you so that when you graduate, you're not alone. I remember finishing college and all of a sudden I was cut off from professors, from all these resources from the university. It was like, yeah, good luck, go find a job. And oh, by the way, we want your money. And that's why even today, it's like, hey, give us your money, give us your money. Like, hang on a second. I haven't paid back the loans yet. Or I'm worried about my kids and how they're going to pay, right? What are you doing to help me and continue this, right? So there's a lot there that we need to tease out. The other fear I have is we're evolving so darn fast that doctors, I mean, this is a scary thought for doctors, but are you really going to be needed 20 years from now? Is the industry going to change so much that what you went to school for, it's no longer needed? A machine does it. And if you're worried about that, I mean, just watch all the movies in the early 40s, 50s, and 60s. What happened when technology, computing technology caught up? We didn't need all these analyst positions, did we? We had a computer, right? So we're evolving so fast. There needs to be an education platform that can help you evolve too, so you're not left in the dust. So that's my opinion on where we're going in the future, is to have more freedom and flexibility and to be an individual who can quickly adapt to what the market needs you to be.
Any quick advice for a healthcare organization that you have because of this evolution? What next step they could do?
Sure. I would review your operating model, and I would make sure that in your operating model you have room and nourishment for continuous improvement and process improvement. That's the number one thing you can do. The second thing you can do is, what are you doing to teach emotional intelligence? How are you teaching your staff to forgive so that we can move on and grow together? It's okay to break eggs. It's not okay to not go and clean up the mess together.
Thank you very much. And as we come to an end, Jared, you have 90 seconds to pitch to the audience, or just a higher level advice to the audience that you think is really important that I might have missed.
Yeah. So if I'm listening now and I'm wondering, yeah, I need change and I want improvement, we have something for you. And so what I would really focus on as an individual is, what does my future look like? Am I in the right organization, in the right role? And if I'm not, how do I get there? What do I need to do to develop myself? If that's the case, reach out. Reach out to us. We're here to help. If you're in a leadership decision-making position and you need people around you to be better, we specialize in that as well. If you're in a process ownership role and you need your processes and outcomes to improve, we specialize in that as well. And so again, if you need change and you want improvement, reach out to us because we've got something for you there.
Thank you very much, Jared. It was such a pleasure having you over at the podcast. There were so many golden nuggets that I have learned today, and I'm sure the audience will really appreciate it as well.
Thanks, Fasa. Thanks for letting me speak to your audience, and I hope we can connect again, and I hope those listening will be willing and take the leap of faith to trust and reach out so we can help.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you again.
Thank you.